Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to be having a bit of an economics challenge, which is the Grunderzeit journal entry here. We have an Austria game that was prepped from stream, where we got to just the point where the Grunderzeit popped, and then we stopped the stream. So, we are going to be starting from here. Now, as I understand, this is extremely hard to do. Other content creators who are very good at the game have struggled with this, and so we are going to be seeing if we could do it. We're a little bit rusty, or I'm a little bit rusty, and so I think it's probably unlikely that we'll be able to do this, because you have to grow GDP by 2.5% per quarter. That's over 10% per annum. That's quite a lot, and we are going to put restrictions on ourselves, which is that we are going to only eco, and we're not going to cheese the eco. So we're not going to turn all of our PMs down, so that we step ladder down one quarter, and then get 5 quarters in a row where the GDP goals are met by turning up half or like a fifth of our PMs every single month, this type of thing, which would make it easy to cheese this. And we're also not going to expand militarily, which would be another way you could grow your GDP. This is going to be full economics only that we are going to be trying to do to accomplish this, and it is quite a long journal entry. So we're going to also be in it for a bit with a 30-year journal of this GDP growth. So, we do have a concern here because we have done this journal entry and we don't know if it's a little bit of strangeness. This says all GDP country, or all German countries. Germany, obviously, is a German country. And they don't seem to be included in the UI here, per, like, the GDP levels, so we're thinking this just refers to us, but we might have to increase their GDP as well. We do have investment rights with them, so we can't influence that, so that is going to be a potential factor. But the second is just wanting to talk about a couple of strategic ideas as it relates to this challenge as we're going into it. And the first is GDP is about both supply and demand. We can't just increase the number of our buildings by 2.5%, every single quarter and expect to be successful, because what will happen is this will just decrease the price of all of our goods, and as the price decreases, this is going to make every individual building a little bit less profitable, and this is also going to decrease the output good prices, which is actually what the GDP is. It's an aggregation of all output good prices less the input good prices, and so it is going to be very important for us to not only create more buildings, but also create more demand for these buildings. This is going to be largely through government investment in various kinds, like us increasing construction, and also we kind of have this to work with. We have to avoid default, because if we default, we're going to get negative throughput, and I don't want to cheese the default. I want this to kind of be a clean challenge, and so we have several hundred million to work with, and we're going to look to slowly fill this debt line as time passes, and do everything in a very linear way, which is kind of the second consideration, which is very often you kind of step ladder your economy, which is you just shoot up, and then you go flat, and then you shoot up, and then you go flat. We cannot do that because we need to hit 2.5% growth per quarter, and so we need to have a very linear progression. And so very often the play pattern when you're increasing construction, this isn't theoretically optimal, but what ends up happening when you're playing is you kind of don't do anything for several years, and then you slap down a whole ton of construction. We can't do that. We're going to try and increase construction by 2.5% every single quarter in order to match this. And also, we are going to kind of, in theory, try and fill this up by around 3% a quarter, 3% a year. Maybe a little bit more aggressive, but the idea is that we have 30 years and we have an entire line of credit, and so we have nearly 100% to work with, and if you're not using it, you're losing it. The first 294 million are free, and so we are going to be trying to run things up like this. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we see that we have a little over 2k construction. Each one of these construction sectors, I do believe, is giving around, let's see, how much construction? They're giving around 10 construction. So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to add 5 construction sectors in the very cheapest places they are. And we're going to look to do this kind of every single quarter, and then also make sure that we fill up the queue. So we're just going to check where it's cheapest, add a couple there, and we are going to be off and on our way once we fill the queue here. I don't know if I mentioned this at the start, but just a point of emphasis is I think I'm probably not going to be successful in this because one, I'm rusty, and two, this actually seems like a fairly hard challenge. But in terms of how we are going to go and approach this, we are going to set several things on auto expand because we expect the auto expand to be a little bit more smooth in terms of how we are progressing here. We do have a construction, or we have a throughput edict here, and so in the capital specifically, we're going to put a lot of things on auto expand, and this I think will be a little bit more smooth than us hitting really big breakpoints where we take a look at a really nice industry, like let's say iron, and we go and we just build a ton of that. We are going to create kind of periods in our queue where we have an absolute enormous amount of really profitable buildings followed by less profitable buildings, and if we hit a quarterly block where we're only building something like power plants, we're probably going to miss the marker. And so this is going to be, we're going to try and lean as much as possible on auto expansion. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do stuff like come in and look where we have something like sulfur mines like Venetia, and then we are going to make sure that everything that has sulfur mines as an input, Venetia is auto expanding here. And so we're going to want the sulfur mines to be auto expanding rather than just topping them off completely. We're going to auto expand them out, and then we're going to make stuff like the explosives, make sure that's auto expanding. And also there's a few other industries like synthetic plants which are also kind of involved in this, and we're going to make sure that they're auto expanding as well. This is slightly suboptimal, but I do think it'll have a smoother curve. Optimal being, of course, going for these industries and bringing them up to economies of scale rather than kind of the slow bringing up. So we would in theory want to just add 22 here, and we might do that if we start running into trouble or feel like we have to make adjustments. But we're going to set up a whole bunch of those, largely based on mappy considerations. So stuff like iron is going to get auto-expanding steel, stuff like lead is going to get auto-expanding glass, and we are going to kind of take things from there. So one thing that is going to present a challenge for us is going to be making sure we have enough pops because we are not expanding. For this, it's going to be really useful that we already have freedom of movement locked in, and we are going to really value increased exchange on both the university and the arts academy. We're going to make sure those are built up everywhere, but also external trade is going to be really useful for giving us this extra trade capacity because remember, we're both supply and demand. We are going to start building more buildings, and as you build really efficiently, prices tend to fall. We need to keep those prices up, and using other countries' demand is going to be one way in which we can do this. So a country or a state like Styria, we can see that we have a lot of peasants here, but we have a little bit of not so good employment level here. Now, to some extent, this is probably going to be a qualifications issue. Qualifications is harder on this patch, but to the extent that this building is not profitable enough, it is going to be nice that we can add trade centers in this specific location so that they can look to export our various goods, especially this, Bohemian crystal here, as well as porcelain, which is very inexpensive. We might, for stuff like porcelain and dual track industries in general, the best way to increase GDP is to increase the price of the lower price thing, and so this might be a strategy for us. Is if we are going to start subventions, we're going to start them first on these types of industries that are dual track on whichever good is cheaper, because this is going to be really a big net positive for GDP. Also, Bohemian crystal, this is our glass, this goes into our construction, so making this cheaper is going to be pretty nice for us as well, as it will give it, well, it's not going to be nice for us because it's going to decrease our GDP, but if we are making this cheaper relative to this by bringing this price up, we're making the overall thing more expensive, and then also we are making it so that we have an equilibrium where will have cheaper construction goods, because when glass is the best thing for us to build, it will be at a lower price than it would be if we weren't exporting porcelain as aggressively. Another thing is, when we think we can get away with it, we are going to overexpand infrastructure. Now, not very construction efficient is the railways, but infrastructure does throttle the maximum amount of pops you can get from migration, and so this is going to be useful for us for being able to get a little bit more pops, and also it's going to free up the auto queue, which is going to be a little bit better, or is going to be a little bit smoother overall, rather than stepladdery. I do believe we have a treaty with them for them to commit to passing migration controls, and if they pass migration controls, we can in theory get some Chinese pops, but I don't think it's going to be as high with the nerfed multiculturalism, but we are going multiculturalism already, so we have a relatively good setup. Now, we are sitting on this company slot. We don't need to put it in, and we are really hoping to get the Suez Canal here. This is going to allow us to trade quite a bit more, as well as give us some more industries that we can utilize, and so that will be really good for us. Currently, our companies are generic steel, Mavag, so a little bit themey with this one, where we do have precision tools. We have the company for glass for Bohemia that has the Prestige Glass Works, and then we also have this company here, which is giving us the rest of the minerals that we don't have, lead, of course, coming from this glass one. So we have a pretty good suite of industrial kind of companies here. In terms of what we're looking to maybe add after we get the Suez Canal, we're probably going to do something a little bit consumer goods heavy, but we already have the glass, so probably not going to go with generic consumer goods, but we all will be poking around looking for something. A bit of a concern for us is going to be sourcing rubber, since we're not expanding. We are going to look to maybe get investment rights with Great Britain or Brazil, and to that end, I think Brazil hates our guts right now, and so we'll start improving relations and maybe end this rivalry here, and so this way we will have more opportunities to build rubber elsewhere out and about, and maybe we improve relations with a couple of these other cats and look to pull them into our block, something like this. So we take it on pause, and it looks like this updated to include the German Empire as well, which is a little bit unfortunate for us, because it's going to be way easier to do this if you have Super Germany, because we're not controlling the German Empire, but we still have to account for an extra third of growth, and so our new quarterly goal is 421 million, and so we have to grow our GDP by 8 million, or the combination of German and ours by 8 million in a single quarter. Already this looks pretty rough. Alright, so us filling out our queue, pushing up construction good costs, this type of stuff, I think is a big driver of our GDP current now passing the goal by 6 million, which is not exactly what we want. Remember, we don't want to step ladder super hard, so we are going to be doing some stuff where we are going to be looking for opportunities to increase this, but we are going to not engage in those opportunities unless we are in trouble. One such of these is going to be us just kind of coming in and building government administrations and just sorting by the number of peasants, and in areas where we have 0 peasants, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be coming in. So we see Bohemia, we have 0 peasants, and we're going to be turning on labor-saving PMs. This is going to free up labor in a very immediate way, and then they will be able to employ up in other buildings. Sorry, we changed the UI here. And so you see this Arts Academy, well, that Arts Academy is not employing up, but anything that's not employing up because there's not enough available labor will get employees. And at the same time, when we turn on labor-saving PMs, we also will at least temporarily juice up the economy with these increased demands, because the pops that get fired from this, the 1,000 laborers, their SOL doesn't go down immediately. Their SOL takes some time to go down, and while their SOL is still high, they will still be putting in their buy orders, and so prices will still remain high. So this is something that we can do on a kind of per need basis. We're going to be turning on these labor-saving PMs, and with this, we will be able to nudge it up in the direction that we need. But already off to, I suppose, a good start, but a little bit of a spooky one, because we don't want to overshoot our quarterly goal very often, because this is going to make it harder for us in the aggregate, because a lot of industries, like the mineral industries, we are not going to have new opportunities to expand those, because they are going to get fully expanded relatively quickly here. So now, with our first check-in, because we overshot it by 14 million, we're going to have a much bigger target of 446 million in terms of the GDP. We are going to be adding 5 construction sectors. Yet again, we're going to sort by upkeep. I think this will be the easiest way to do it. And we are going to be adding those there. We'll put them in the back of the queue. I think that's fine enough. And we will hope that we don't overshoot it. I think that if we continue to overshoot this goal, we'll maybe add a little bit less construction, and that will throttle us down and allow us to go in a little bit more of a linear fashion. Second check-in here, we just overshoot it by 2 million, pretty comfortable, and we get a mass migration, and multiculturalism is pushing a little bit further, all good things for us. So we are here 10 million off our mark with only 1 month remaining. So it is pretty likely we are going to miss this entry here. But what we're going to do is we're going to come in and use the labor saving PM here. And we are going to take an unpause and see if this affects the GDP. Now, I think if we turned on enough things, oh, it looks like our construction queue is a little bit kind of out of whack. So what we're going to do is, generally speaking, when we're looking to pick up the slack, we are going to want to make use of our peasants. Just as a general heuristic, and what we're going to be doing is we are going to be pushing clothing, which we don't have a lot of mappy things that can go into it. We don't have the input goods that we produce in a lot of places, and so this is going to be a good industry for us to push in the places that just have high pops to give them employment opportunities. But you can see here, if we let the construction queue idle, this will drop our GDP marker. And so if at any point we're near the kind of entry point, or we're near the check-in and we let things idle, this is going to be bad for us. So we're going to make sure that this is all just going everywhere with this kind of, let's put that in like that, and then we will have a full queue, and then hopefully on the month tick we will be in okay shape. Looks like we're coming up a little bit, looks like we're probably going to miss this one. And so this will be the first one we miss. And so this, we just have to, it's not a big deal if we miss 1 or 2 or this type of thing. Looks like we have to put a little bit more in, but this is us missing here. So let's take a little bit of a look at some things, put on some labor-saving PMs, and make sure that we hit this next one. So we make it through our first year, and we are currently at a 4 out of 4. So we just have to replicate this 30 more times. Now, we do have some PMs that we are going to be slowly turning up as well as a tool that we have. In particular, the tooling workshops are going to be very useful because we still haven't turned everything up onto machine steel tools. This is going to be something that we look to bump up slowly, and also by virtue of bumping it up slowly, we won't cause ourselves to run shortages of rubber. You can see here we have this uptick. This is where we turned up another place other than the capital onto these tools. I think that we might even subvention the import of rubber specifically, just to make sure that we have a steady supply as we turn up PMs, and then we'll turn it back down. So why don't we do a low subvention for import here, look to get the price a little bit lower, look to make that be a kind of pattern that we could use over the next several years to make sure we hit our mark. We're also building in Germany now, because we need to keep our queue going, and I think that we are going to run out of pops we can use anyways, and so we might as well start putting the, you know, the northern Germans to work, much like how the southern Germans have been, you know, pulling all the weight as it relates to the Grunderzeit here. We are going to put a treaty in with Great Qing. This is probably going to be a type of treaty that we are going to need to do quite a bit of. We are securing for ourselves input goods here. We're exporting opium, but just to make sure that we get more money. And by doing this, we will be able to push the clothing a little bit more. I suppose we should also take a look at dyes, if they will send us dyes in a sort of meaningfully good way for us. We just need to decrease the supply because they're a little bit scared by that amount of dyes. And so this should be pretty good for us, and we can't really build these ourselves, so we're not really decreasing our GDP by virtue of decreasing the price of these things. And so to the extent that our economy is skewed towards particular goods, we are going to want to make sure that we secure as much of our inputs as possible through these you know, treaties, as long as we are mainly securing it through there. So if we were producing a bunch of dye, this would hurt our GDP, but it won't hurt our GDP now. Look at this upline. So up, so nice. So we want to make our trades more effective here, generally speaking, and we kind of have 3 ideas here. The first is, we are on mercantilism right now, and that's okay. we would rather be on mercantilism here. The reason being is this is going to tamp down our imports. When we import something like the explosives here, that is something that's produced in our market, what this is going to do is this is going to net decrease our GDP, which is not what we are looking for here. So by going on mercantilism, this is going to make the most profitable trades for us, because it decreases our trade advantage, tend to be more export oriented. And as we export goods, we increase buy orders in the market, increase buy orders, increase prices, and this makes our production of the goods more profitable, or helps to buoy up our prices. Now, another thing that helps to buoy up our prices is when we are getting our input goods, and those input goods are cheaper, especially if we're not producing them ourselves. So the dyes, for example, as we mentioned, we're not really producing dyes ourselves, and so when the price of dyes decreases, it doesn't really decrease our GDP. So we are super okay with the dyes specifically getting more of these in the market. However, what we're going to do is we're going to try and secure input goods via trade agreement, and stuff like the consumer goods, this will be decreased by the mercantilism, right? And we actually kind of want this for a secondary reason. This is going to push up our pop growth because we are passing the threshold here where we have maximum pop growth in between this 10 to 15 range. I'm not sure what the number is exactly in terms of our modifiers. I just know it's somewhere between there. And so because of this, we would actually rather have lower GDP or lower SOL than we do currently. We would rather bring down the SOL to increase pop growth. But another thing we are going to be pursuing is trade agreements. You can see here Mexico has an enormous export advantage, and where a lot of it is coming from is the fact that they have a trade privilege with us, who is far and away the biggest consumer of rubber here. And so if we want to encourage people to sell rubber, something that we can do is get trade agreements with them, because with the really big trade advantage here for Mexico, they are going to prefer to send this out relative to other things. Now, if we get trade agreements with all of these guys, it will be a little bit of a wash, but Mexico specifically is catering more towards our needs as a country by virtue of having trade advantage with us. And so this is going to be favorable for us. And then the final thing that we are going to be doing to try and increase our trades just in general is going to be, we are going to be pursuing more merchant marine. As we decrease the price of merchant marine, this will increase the price, or this will increase the margins of trade, and this will make additional trade centers more valuable. Now, the trade centers aren't producing really GDP because they're trading stuff, and so it's not like we want to spam them hyper hard. But if we are if we're way far ahead on a kind of entry here, where it looks like we're 2 months away and we still aren't going to be missing our mark, what we're going to do is we're going to put a bunch of trade centers at the front of the queue, because this is going to help us in quarters down the line. And so what we're going to do right now is we are going to expand out any sort of ports. Wait, why can't we expand ports here? Okay, there we go. We're going to expand out ports in this region because we had it on domestic instead of abroad. Especially because Venetia is going to be a place that has a additional modifier. We have additional trade capacity here, but the ports get throughput. There's extra trade capacity. The trade eats it there specifically. We're also going to be expanding in Trieste as well here, these ports. So speaking of trade privileges, this is going to be a pretty good agreement for us here. The investment rights might actually be bad for us because this is going to cause our auto queue to build in other countries, but I trust that it'll be good enough, and eventually we are going to be having so much construction, so much investment pool that we're going to need sinks, and we are going to want to keep the auto queue going. But importantly, we're getting trade privileges both way, and a nice good transfer on the fabric and the dyes. We don't produce those, and merchant marine to make our trades more effective. So we thread the needle perfectly, just 1 million over the quarterly goal, and we unlock open hearth process here, which is going to be good for us because we can slowly, kind of push this up. We're going to start in the capital here, and we are going to push this up to open hearth. We are going to do it in at least one other location that has a decent amount of steel. This one seems fine enough, and then we are going to continue to push these up a little bit slowly. I think we can let it rip to some extent a little bit more because we have the tools kind of in the... Oh, we did it before it updated. We were supposed to wait for it to update. That's not ideal. But we can kind of like... Here, let's let one more rip. We can we have a lot more wiggle room here now than we did before, and so this is going to be useful for us. We have to hit the 12 million mark. We already put in our construction sectors, but we will kind of go and, again, ahead of time, before we need it, look to expand out the infrastructure this way that we don't run into issues. We're going to look and see places that we have peasants. We're going to add a few where we have peasants and not a lot of infrastructure available already, because we know we're going to probably slap down a bunch of clothing things in these types of places when we are looking for places to expand, and look for new auto expands to be putting in. So, as part of keeping our construction queue going, we are just building in Germany, since if their GDP goes up, this fulfills the requirements of the journal as well, which, like, in theory is bad, but whatever. We're trying to focus on the journal specifically. We also do complete a little bit of a skyscraper, which is going to, of course, scrape the sky, as the name implies, but also it's going to be a key thing for us because we're going to turn on Trade Nexus, giving us 25% trade capacity and advantage. This is going to be a really, really big come up. This, incidentally, I think maybe makes the kind of overlooked reinforced concrete look quite a lot better, because you need steel frame building and reinforced concrete in order to do the journal entry for that, so that's going to be pretty big. We have corporate governance coming in real soon. We do have the tech gnat spreading on philosophical pragmatism, so what we'll do is we'll try and get to 1500, which I think is the base cost at this level for this, and then we will switch techs, and the tech we're probably going to switch to is going to be rotary valve engine. That way we get more opportunities on places that are completely depeasanted to flip this up, and we don't have any insane PMs to really kind of just pick up right here. The biggest one being plastics. That's probably where we go next, because we have oil and a glass company, so that all seems nice and good with us. But after that, we're going to have some sort of slim pickings, so this turning on these PMs occasionally thing is not going to work out for us on a continued basis. We turned on a couple PMs here, and I'm kind of thinking that we will be successful in hitting this, but we are about to hit month 3, or sorry, looks like we missed this one, but that's okay. Our quarterly was roughly speaking the same, and so we should fail that one, correct? We get multiculturalism, which is big, and we want to fail it by a bigger margin. So now we have to get up to 514 million. So we're going to turn up some PMs. We're going to add some construction to the front of the queue. We are actually incidentally making money, so the rate at which we're adding construction can be higher. So we're going to kind of push it up quite a bit more than we have been. We're again going to sort by upkeep, and this is kind of what we've been doing just to the front of the queue. Just a few of these. I think we're going to do like 8 a tick now, considering we are occasionally missing on this, and we don't want to be, but this multiculturalism is going to be big. We're expecting a ton of mass migrations now. There we have it. A Rajput mass immigration from Jodhpur. This is going to be really, really nice for us when these start coming in. And we fill out the second year, and we are still in good shape here. Now, this is something to keep in mind for us. These are going to be really nasty. If we get a flood, we're probably going to fail multiple of these in a row, which is one of the reasons we're really trying to stay on 4, because we don't want to get ruined by a flood just in the middle of Austria. This would pretty much end our opportunity to do this successfully, but we're going to add in our construction. Taking a look at our GDP, it is straight vertical. Remember, it's not the size of the line, it's the shape, and ours is erect. So we have perhaps a bit of an issue looming on the horizon, which is that we have saturated the market in several industries for exports. Now, to be fair, the majority of our buy orders aren't from the exports. This is a very small amount, and so this doesn't really necessarily push the needle that much, but this is something we would prefer. We would prefer to export more. That way we can keep the prices high. The prices of these goods are starting to go down. Now we can use monopolies to keep them high, and we will if they collapse too low, but we don't want to necessarily do that. You can see we have the same situation for tools, but let's take a look at the world market here, and take a look at maybe, let's say, France's market and see just what proportion of tools they are consuming, because if we were to subvention export on tools, we could buoy up the price a little bit. So let's take a look at France here, and let's see how much of their sell orders are coming from us. You can see that like roughly a third of our sell orders are coming from us. So if we collapse the price further, got it cheaper, we would start to make their tooling workshops less and less profitable. We can see that there is one in Lorraine and one in Burgundy. So if we just take a look in at Lorraine, we will be able to see what exactly is going on here. So we can see that it is incidentally coming from Belgium, owned this this here, and we can see that the margin, 3/5 of this is going in on the balance, 2/5 is on wages, so we would have to drop the price considerably to make this so profitable that it couldn't employ, right? We would have to drop the price by 3/5. I don't think that's possible, and so it's not going to be the case that subventioning exports is really going to give us more buy orders, but instead what is happening is the fact that we have such a big control over the market, and we do have tools starting to get really cheap in other people's markets in terms of the world market. What this is going to do is going to disincentivize them to build more tools, which is exactly what we want. That way, their subsequent buy orders that they're creating for other things are going to tend to consume tools. We're making a ton of money. We're still adding construction. So I think we're going to add in a subvention on tools. We're going to do a low subvention for export. And in this way, we will push out more tools and prevent other people from building as many tools. And so hopefully this smooths things out for us. I think we're already subventioning steel. I think we're in pretty good shape here. So let's keep it going. Alright, so we missed 2 in a row. Narrowly missed. And we have swapped up all of our steel PMs, and the tooling PMs are waiting on us getting more rubber. So we've invested in rubber overseas so we can turn this up, but we really need a win at this point, so we are going to start stimulating the economy in a fairly robust and easy way, which is we are going to start adding a bunch of infantry as well. We're going to look at the places that have the lowest or the highest amount of peasants, and we're just going to add a whole bunch of infantry to here. This will create a lot of buy orders for these goods, but also we are going to continue to add construction, and we are going to add quite a bit more construction than we have before, just because we need to lock in a win here, and so we are going to add something like 10 to 12 construction sectors. We don't want to completely like blow it up, because we want to make sure that we have maintenance or ability to get other ones, but we do have here only need to get 12 million increase, and I think we also have some buildings that are pretty close to finishing here, but it is a little bit of a tentative dance. Yeah, we have a bunch of coal mines overseas in Germany that we are looking to finish here in the queue. And there's the additional rubber. We also have some naval bases that we would put in. Those ironclads are going to be expensive, but we don't have too much labor on the coast, so that's not necessarily something we could do too much. We're going to add a couple trade centers at the front too. The trade centers actually might increase GDP by a decent amount per construction, if we think of it from the perspective of they're creating buy orders in our market, generally speaking, especially when we're subventioning stuff. Again, looking at this, we are making money, so we definitely want to be in this space where we are like pushing out money, and so I think maybe we start exporting or subventioning. We just like look at our companies and we're like, hey, these are the things we're going to specialize in, and so as long as this is the case, that we're specializing in these things and they are industries, we are subventioning them. So we might even subvention motor industries. I can't remember the last time I've done something like that, but I think we'll subvention them and continue on here, and I think we'll be in good shape. Maybe this is something we want to watch, because maybe this is where we fail. Okay, we're within 8 million, that's striking distance, and that's without any of our stuff finishing. There's 41, 43, there's mass migration here, a bunch of those finished, so we did add orders, but here's the crux of the issue. We have to make sure the construction like maintains. As you can see, this dropped, so we're going to make sure that that queue is filled, probably adding a bunch of clothing at the end. Alright, so that was a little spooky. We do get the uptick. We still have a queue pretty well set up for another uptick, but what we're going to do is, just to make sure that the following one is pretty good, we're just going to drop a 50 stack manufacturing in Bohemia, which is going to instantly hit economies of scale max throughput, which is kind of a play pattern we have been avoiding. Again, looking to slowly expand up. We're getting a little bit more aggressive with it, and we have changed up our decrees. Instead of using a resource decree in Bohemia, they've kind of outgrown it. They're more manufacturing based. We swapped to manufacturing, and then in Wallachia and in West Galicia, we have put in resource decrees because there's quite a lot of resources in this area. You can see 60 oil, 140 coal, and of course this mappy rainbow state-ish kind of minerals, but also eventually Wallachia will receive oil, a very large amount, and so we're looking forward to that coming in. So we get rotary valve, we can come back and get our extra company, but we actually can't slot in the company we want to just yet, or we should be able to. Let's finish philosophical pragmatism, and then as soon as we do, we will be able to get on corporate governance for Freezy's good dealsies. But we also now can come in and take a look at places where we have no peasants, where we've completely depeasanted, which, to be fair, a lot of these places are getting filled up with migrants, and we can come into these places and turn on the higher tier labor saving PM. This is going to be a nice play pattern. We are going to do it quite a bit. I think we're pretty safe for this next one. We have several months to get to 9 million, and so that is going to be, we just hit 3 months, and so we have several months to get 6 million GDP. This is easy enough, and we haven't even gotten our construction sectors in, and so we don't need to turn up a bunch of stuff in order to be hitting that. But if we just wait, you can see the mass migrations are coming in almost every other week, something like this, and so it does feel like we're in good shape now. So we do see that this industry, the luxury clothes, is a little bit cheaper. So what we're going to do is we are going to put subventions for exports on the luxury clothes here as well. We have been pushing clothing. We are going to go another clothing company as one of our companies. Getting investment rights in Brazil is going to be big because they do have a rather large supply of rubber. So we will maybe be able to turn on the rubber PM on the textile mills as well. So the Suez Canal finally finishes employing up, which is going to be nice. We do want merchant marine. We want that trade advantage. Don't really care about that 50K tax income, but we are in trouble yet again. We're at 3 months. We put in extra construction and also a bunch of barracks and a few naval bases. We have a lot of buildings that aren't that far from finishing, but we have just this enormous kind of bunch of paper mills, but we do have a lot in the auto queue as well that are pretty close to finishing, so I think we're in okay shape for this, but this is a little bit rough. We have to come up 13 million here. We're keep getting these mass migrations, but I really think that the construction's going to push it up. Yeah, this is starting to look pretty good, but this is a little bit of seesaw action back and forth. We feel super safe, and then we get clapped with 2 of these in a row, and we are anytime we're on 2 out of 4, we're 1 bad flood away from failing this, unless we resort to something pretty cheeky. We could collapse our economy and then slowly turn up PMs and just finish this easy, but we're trying to eco up. We're trying to do it without declaring a war. Declaring a war and then mobilizing would instantly increase our GDP, so that would be fine. And we're starting to get to the point where we're actually losing money, but remember, we have this 400 million to work with. We're super okay with overspending, so I think actually what we're going to do to try and lock in one of these doing well is, generally speaking, the military wages aren't too great, so let's up the wages. The wages of the bureaucrat are a little bit better, or a little bit bigger. We don't want to increase SOL is the problem, so by upping this, we're the lower class in particular, we are going to be increasing up, and I think we'll get rid of this consumption tax, and we'll spend this authority. I was going to say not because we're going to spend the authority, but we are going to spend the authority, but the idea is this will raise SOL. I don't know if it'll hit this check-in specifically in the 3 months, the SOL coming up, but what we will get is we will get the ability to put down some more decrees. We'll try and figure out where the best place for manufacturing is. I think we do have an absolute ton of pops up here, so that is going to be one, and then we're going to look for another one to slap down. So, a little bit of a nail-biter here. We have to get 1 more million this next week. Our queue is filled, so we won't idle when we complete some stuff. But this is kind of... Either we're going to be in really good shape or really bad shape, depending on when this... Or not good shape, but... The drop. Not the drop. So, now we have to get up to 625 million. And I don't know if we can do that. Well, I mean, in theory we could do that, but man, these last few have been really rough. We researched electricity so we could get our company in. We do need to put one electricity company thing down here. But I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take a look at 50 stacking things. And also completing these paper mills. We have a ton of paper mills that are really, really close to completion. Actually, just a ton of stuff that's really close to completion. And we have a bunch of coal mines in the queue that we have like 10 weeks on, this type of thing. I think we were pushing economies of scale with those. So I think we're in good shape, but we will, this time, add like 20 construction sectors at the front of the queue. Just really like a whole bunch, just because we absolutely can't fail. We have to get this one, so... this is going to be quite a bit, and this might be the end of this, like, little experiment. Pretty interesting. A bit unfortunate, because we're, like, researching combustion engine right now, and I think that this is going to be a really, really big power spike for us if we can manage to get there. So we get a trade privileges off of both Spain and France, really trying to send out more goods to them or get better trade advantage with the trades we're doing, specifically on luxury furniture, because we do have competitors with luxury furniture or on luxury furniture in Great Britain, so that will be useful. I think we might be competing with them on clothing as well, luxury clothing, so it looks like we are. We're going to push up the subventions even higher, and I think we're going to subvention out regular clothing as well. We have quite a bit of clothing, so we do want to run exports, and we're going to subvention up higher this luxury furniture. I think we already clicked it up. Alright, that's fair enough. We're going to do regular furniture as well, really trying to make sure we hit the next one, because if we don't, we just dead in terms of what we have going on here. And so I think that once those trades go in, yeah, it does boost up the GDP a little bit. It does mean we're paying a bit more. We're now hemorrhaging money, but this is very much the plan, so we're super okay with this. We're floating a little bit of authority. We don't necessarily need to lay it down now, but I suppose it won't hurt to lay it down now, because if we fail this, we're out. So we'll find some sort of edict to put down, but we're going to peel that edict back up eventually for getting additional companies. We just don't want to add shipyards here, and we are waiting on the ability to slot in the companies that we do. We need oil to spawn in Wallachia, and we also need Tyrol to finish their, this power plant, which will be incidentally quite soon, and then we'll be popping off because they'll be buying the clothing industries. Alright, because we want to be export focused, what we are coming in and doing is everything that is a kind of thing that we are importing that is specifically a consumer good, we're setting up tariffs for import. That way we are less likely to receive more of these things. We don't want them coming in, and we will be making a tiny bit of money, but the point isn't the making the money, the point is shifting our trade centers from importing these goods to either importing input goods or exporting goods. This is going to drop our SOL, but that's fine, because we don't care about our SOL, because we want it to be slightly lower anyways, so we have a slightly higher birth rate, although our population is just going straight to the moon with this migration. And this is kind of the moment of truth here, because if this doesn't work out well, we're going to be in extraordinarily bad shape, and actually, we need to fill up the queue, because if we get a weak rollover and at the same time the queue empties, there won't be enough demand for the construction, and the construction goods will get cheap. That is primarily what we're producing, so we're going to fill up the queue before we take this tick. Alright, the moment of truth, whether or not we fail this GE. If we do fail, this has been a bit interesting, and also quite difficult to keep going without doing stuff that's unfair. If we expanded, it would be a lot easier. If we fiddled with the PMs in a little bit of an obtuse way, like, for example, we could just turn down all the PMs, collapse our GDP to 300 million, and then turn them up piecemeal to very easily succeed in this, but just trying to do it in a kind of normal-looking way is really big painful. Oh, thank God. The like, changing of the imports and exports thing seems to be responding quite strongly, and hopefully we get the tick in the right time. And we do. So we're up to stagnating again. Glad to be stagnating here. And so we're going to need to try and figure some stuff out. But again, we have some good stuff on the horizon coming in combustion engine. And also the fact that I think that this should be finished. And with this finished, we will be able to slot in our company that is going to give us quite a bit of, I think, GDP by virtue of us getting now clothing industries going. And so this is going to be really nice. I wish there was some way for us to just instantly juice up the company super, super big. We are going to want investment rights, so we're going to pull back the decree that we had put down, the resource decree right here. But we are going to want to give them industry rights for the synthetic plants. We can't do it right now. We got to do the thing. Oh, we can't do the thing. Womp womp. We need some more authority somewhere. But these guys, hopefully... Oh, we need them, give them investment rights. We have to figure something out here. Maybe they don't need investment rights, at least at the beginning here, because they have plenty of our industries to buy up. But this should give us a lot of throughput on textile mills, which is an increasingly large percentage of our economy. If we just kind of sort here by orders, we will be able to see that we are here. Actually, these are buy orders are going to be the thing that we care most about. We have quite a lot of buy orders for clothing, so getting the extra throughput on this is going to be quite good. How collapsed is the price of tools? We might want to do a tools monopoly here, actually, because this will increase the price of tools, and this will just be net juiced up on the GDP. The problem with doing this is this will nuke our trades, first, and second of all, this is just a one shot in a barrel. If we increase the... Yeah, I don't think we actually want to use a monopoly to manipulate the prices up, even though this is a really big gain, because it's just a gain once. Maybe we keep it as something in our back pocket if we get to the only one goal met recently as a way to just crank up really, really hard. But as long as we're above 1, maybe we avoid using that here. But this is kind of the way we're choosing companies, this proportion of our economy. I think that we're going to do oil next, although it would be maybe reasonable to do paper. We are getting paper imports, and we're also producing paper ourselves, so maybe we want to tamp down on that and have a little bit of an import tariff. That way we will be taking a little bit less in ourselves. So we are pretty close here to getting back up to full, but we have been microing kind of hard to try and make sure that like our queue looks correct, we're hitting economies of scale stuff, and all the while we have this very awkward situation where we're basically out of the resources, which is kind of the most effective thing at cranking up your GDP. And so once this is gone, we're going to be in bad shape. We can't build iron in Germany too, which is a bit unfortunate because we'd love to build it in them and import from them because they have a monopoly. But we have been adding eco to Germany, and we will continue to add resource-based eco to Germany, especially stuff like the logging camps. That is just ridiculously effective because increasing their GDP works for this journal entry. We don't need to increase our own. It could be Germany's there as well. So we whiffed the last entry because we let our queue idle just at the very last week. But I think it's worth noting that if you wanted to complete this, what you could do is you could just alternate weeks between letting your queue idle and then keeping your queue up, and you're virtually guaranteed to hit it every single time. This is really, really easily cheesable, but if you're trying not to cheese it, if you're trying to actually actively grow this much, it is incredibly difficult. If you take a look at our GDP line, it is nearly straight vertical, and it's got to stay this way the entire time in order to be able to maintain 2.5% a quarter. This is a pretty fast speed. We're going up on some restricted child labor, just looking to reduce the mortality so we have more pops is the main idea. We don't really care about the education, we just need more pops consuming more goods. Although we do lose out on the dependence income, but I think overall just having more pops is going to be more preferable. And speaking of, we should be thinking more about political stuff, because if we can get this guy powerful, this is going to be a big deal for workforce ratio and manufacturing industries. So we might do some general cheesing, which is not the same as the eco-cheesing, just to try and see if we can manipulate up the trade unions. So we're going to recruit a whole bunch of guys looking for trade union guys and promoting trade unions to the top of the list. This is unfortunately very, very tedious, but the idea is as we promote these guys, they will give more political strength, and so we'll just promote them to the very top and recruit as many trade unions as we can, and recruit and not promote anyone else other than the trade unions in order to try and get their clout up. Just kidding, we're just actually rolling 100% industrialists, so I don't think we're going to do this. Alright, we've hit the point where the grain and other rural stuff is starting to be a decent rate anyways. So what we're going to do is we're going to push a couple 50 stacks in grain. Also, we're tariffing the imports, so people don't want to export it to us anyways. And what we are going to do is we are going to look to produce it ourselves. Pretty efficient per construction, this type of thing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we hit economies of scale with these things. And so we'll put them on auto-expand on at least one industry and try and make sure they get that, try and massage it in the right direction. Right now it looks like grain is the least profitable thing. We don't care about this, by the way. The fact that other people own part of our GDP, this is kind of irrelevant because it's the same GDP no matter what. And so this is going to be fine with us, but this is the type of thing we're going to set on auto-expand. Really efficient per construction. We hope that this is pretty good for cranking up the GDP. We do have 15 million to go on this, and we got a couple months to do it. A couple things. First of all, we had been piecemealing in on electrification. Now we have so much construction that I think that we can just go for the rest of their electrification. So we have that in the queue. And also, we have this in our back pocket now. So if we ever get in really big trouble, we can just turn on telephone switchboards, which, okay, we don't have the telephones, but this will crank up our GDP at the very last minute if need be. We're also coming up on combustion engine, which is going to be a huge pickup. I think we do want telephone switchboards to open up new demand and new buy orders in foreign markets so that we can dump goods to them. It's going to be very good for the automotive industries as well. After that, I think that we want steam turbine. It's going to be the case that, okay, plastics would be really good for glass production, but glass we're producing a lot because we have a glass company, and I think what we're going to be wanting to do is we're going to be wanting to turn up the clothing company as well as maybe set up compression ignition, something like this. We may even go art silk, which kind of feels bad, but this would allow us to source our own silk, which we are currently trying to get from other people. Incidentally, just kind of taking a look at some of what we're doing. If we look at our fabric, we will be able to see that there is an enormous amount of sell orders. And a big amount of these sell orders are coming from treaties. 14k from treaties out of the current total 43k. We have a lot in cotton plantations ourselves, and the rest are coming. We have a little bit of coming from trade, but this is saving us from needing to use our trades on this ourselves. And so our trade is going to look a lot more export heavy. You can see 29k, 9k, 6k, 5 point something k, and then here we have 7k, 5k, 4k, 4k. These types of things, of course, tariffing a lot of these, at least the ones that are end consumer goods, and subventioning a lot of these. We are starting to come up in the credit line, and this is not, I think, a sustainable level of spending, but it might be. We're 20% through it, and we're not at 20%, deficit yet, so maybe we can spend in this way for quite some time. We'll see how it goes. Alright, so we got up to booming. Now we're going to intentionally fail the next one. We're just going to get ahead on all of our power plants, and this is not going to be very efficient per construction. We're also not going to add any construction sectors. We are going to have to start avoiding adding construction sectors because we are almost out of construction sector slots, and so we're starting to saturate the land that we have, and not wanting to go to war is beginning to look like a more and more serious constraint. Part of it is we just don't have additional resources to expand, but also a big part of our creating demand has been pushing up these construction sectors, and this is just not going to be a tool that we have pretty soon. So it might be the case that we get 10 years in, just kind of slogging along, and then it just becomes untenable. We are hoping that these higher tier PMs allow us to make some moves. In particular, the cars we have coming in, we have an enormous queue. So we are planning on using the fact that we're booming to fail maybe 1 to 2 of these to really kind of set up for the next several and look to recover back up to 4 out of 4. Well, it's looking like we're going to be in fine shape anyways. We did get the fertilizer tech, which was quite nice. We turned on one of it. We're going to turn on the next kind of gap, but it's looking pretty good in terms of us getting pretty well over the point we need to be at. And now we have a new baseline here. And I think that, I mean, I'm very, very tempted to just leave this, because I think that we want to cut things close while we are booming, and then really look to push it while we are not booming. I think that this is going to be the adjustment that we're making here. So we're going to save turning up that PM. We probably shouldn't have turned it up last time, but we were just like so close to getting over the line anyways. I figured might as well just take it. We get designer clothes, which is going to be very nice. Now it'll be easier for us to force export textile mills, which is increasingly a very large percentage of our queue. I don't think we've given them overseas investment rights, but I think that actually we might rake back overseas investment rights. See, here's the thing. If we have these buildings overseas, then the pops won't want to build them from us. And this is maybe a little bit of an oversight from us, but these guys are building overseas in other people's stuff, so I think we're actually going to cancel all of our investment rights. I think that this was a mistake as it relates to specifically spinning up our GDP, because we don't want these guys actually building stuff in other people's countries. So we're going to pull this back, and we are just going to look to build it ourselves in our nation. That way we can export it. That way we can keep our GDP high, because getting more investment pool is not all that valuable. The thing that we care about for this is getting GDP. This one actually we might keep in. This one I think we'll keep in, the foreign investment rights, because specifically this is inputs that we might end up importing at some point anyways. So I do think that this is probably worthwhile, and this is going to refund back to us no authority, because we were not spending any authority, but now we can look to add the extra industry here. We have plenty of free charters, and so I think we're going to add the extra industry here, and this one we might want to get overseas investment, because the trade centers don't add to the investment pool, so I do think that we want to be using that. It looks like we already slotted in because the trade centers don't add to GDP. So us building trade centers in other people's nation, giving those throughput, and them importing from us, that's just fine with us. And so we are still waiting for Wallachia to spawn oil to be able to slot in the company, which is a little bit annoying, but we're going to get a pretty nice power spike when we do that. I think that's part of what's carried us here so far, has been the power spike that we have gotten from the clothing company. But this one we're just looking to whiff. It looks like our cars are actually finishing though, so maybe we don't whiff as we kind of get closer here and start to clear out the queue. It's a little bit close. We could turn up the what is it? We could turn up the PM for the wheat farm and move on to fertilizers, but I think that we're not going to do this, because we would actually, I think, rather brick and have the guarantee of the next session and have that be a little bit better. So we get this peeled back a little bit, and then now we'll turn up the wheat farms. I think that we'll also not turn up all of them, because it's not as imperative that we guarantee it, but we'll find a really big stack of them, and we'll turn up to fertilizers, and so that will give us a big GDP kick. Looks like we accidentally idled the queue there towards the end, but that's fine, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hitting 752, should be fairly easy, because that was basically the same target we had the last stretch, and so we're going to look to get in there on that. So microing the power plants is always the pain, but the best way to do it is to come into this area and sort by the amount of consumption you have, and then sort by local price, and then this will be all of your high demand things that are needing. We are going to add a couple of these to the queue here to make sure that we clear this out. Looks like they're having a little bit of, this isn't an us issue. This is this building's not employing up issue. We easily could supply 97 electricity with this quantity, so we'll leave that alone. And it looks like that's the case for all of these other ones, and then these are just overseas stuff. Unfortunately, it's not filtered out, but it is looking like we're kind of okay on the electricity, but this is, I think, the easiest user interface way of handling it, and we just do have to micro it for what we're doing here. We had almost forgotten here. we can add automotive industries to Mavag, and we will choose to do so. So this is going to be pretty good for us. We also started expanding them in Wallachia, but it's starting to feel pretty good. We have some PMs that we can tick up, and we're not feeling like we need to, just as long as we're keeping the queue going. It seems to be good. Now, we will not intentionally idle the queue to fail this, and so we're going to make sure that we are keeping going, because we do actually want to grow roughly 2.5% GDP per quarter here, but we are not going to turn up the PMs until we need to, and we've just spiked 2 in a row without needing to turn up PMs or build construction sectors, so things are looking good. Other than this might be a potential problem kind of in the future here, because this is growing at a relatively decent clip, this deficit, and a big portion of this is 400k in subventions. So we might have to peel back the subventions slightly. Specifically, I think the luxury clothes is maybe a little bit too much. We are paying a lot for it, and it is a tier 2 subvention, and so I think that we're going to be able to dominate the market without it. So this, for example, we are going to peel back a little bit to try and bring this slightly under control before it becomes too big of an issue. Alright, we narrowly missed on our last check-in, and now it feels really bad because we don't have anything like kind of in the... We tried to build a bunch of construction sectors at the end. We don't really have too much left in the tank in terms of any... Actually, we don't have any PMs that we can turn up. So we're going to blast a bunch of these. But again, we are running out of the ability to add construction sectors in here. And also, we just need to keep the entire queue going the entire time. And this is quite a bit of a challenge. I think that this check-in should be okay for us, but we have to make sure that we are keeping the construction queue filled. But the problem is we're running out of like profitable ways to keep the construction queue filled. We are kind of turning back onto trying to build in the other side of Germany, because we know that these opportunities are a little bit more profitable than ours, but because we've exhausted our mineral resources, and so we're just going to blast Germany's and hope that that works out pretty well. Pretty efficient per construction, and we have a bunch of this construction coming in, so I do think that this is going to work out reasonably for us. They don't have a lot of investment pool, Germany, because we've been cranking up their GDP quite a bit, and if we take a look, we could see, wow. See, this is one of the struggles actually here. This would be so much easier if we were on Mega Germany, because when they do something like shit the bed and like lose all of this GDP, then like we don't have any control over that, and so when this happens, we just kind of fail this thing. To be fair, they can also gain GDP, but yeah, look at that, just up 9 million kind of instantly, and so we're just kind of trying to hobble around, along to our checkpoints effectively, where once we hit steam turbine, we should be able to pass that one, and once oil appears in Wallachia, we should... Oh, it appeared in Wallachia, there we go. That's it. So now we're going to be able to get our oil company and get things going. Right now the price of oil is kind of low, and I think what we're going to do is we're gonna drink from the forbidden well, the forbidden fruit of the chainsaw PM. And we're not using this because we need the labor save so much as we're using it because this creates a lot of buy orders for the oil, and so this should raise the price of oil and make these more profitable. I think overall it'll be net positive on the GDP. We can see we moved from 163 or 161 to 163, and so we should be in good shape for the next check-in coming in here. Yeah, we should be in really good shape, and then we will have the company for a bit of an uptick, you know, once these oil refineries finish, once these oil rigs finish, and then following that we'll have steam turbine. So hopefully we can string together a couple in a row and maybe get back to +4 here. Alright, so we get the oil company, but oil is really, really cheap in our market. So something we can do is we can give out the monopoly for oil if we start running into problems. And I think that's what we're going to do, is if we get onto a 1 out of 4, we'll give out the monopoly, and this will increase the price of oil. It would be strictly good right now because we have way more sell orders than we do buy orders, and so it is very, very cheap. But all we have to do is come in and give monopoly rights, so we have a fail-safe kind of setup, and we're almost 1/3 the way there. This seems like a very, very difficult journal entry just in the abstract, because we are microing super hard to try and do this. I imagine that this gets changed and gets made easier. Otherwise, it's going to be a big struggle. But we're also not doing stuff like intentionally idling our queue in order to go down and then back up, which would be relatively easy to do, or expanding. So maybe it's okay in the context of you doing other stuff to increase your GDP. So despite adding around 20 construction sectors, we still are not able to hit our checkpoint. And a big issue that we have that is really hard to discern or play around is Germany's GDP is going to mess with things. So anytime their GDP drops, it effectively makes it so we can't pass our entry. And so if they have 4 big drops in a row, it's really, really rough for us to overcome. Like, for example, over here, I think this is when they demobilized, we just can't possibly do that. To be fair, the one afterwards, we're in kind of okay shape, but we're victim to their mobilization. To be fair, we could mobilize, demobilize, do this type of thing, but we're trying to do it without it, and so this is a really significant issue for us. So we're going to click the panic button, although our panic button's not very strong yet, and we are going to put in the monopoly here. I do believe the monopoly only applies to buildings they own, which is not a lot, so but those will get additional throughput, which will make this building more profitable. So to some extent, this will crank up a lot faster, and we'll get our prosperity bonus faster, which is additional throughput. It really does generate a lot of total throughput in the end. We could see here we are getting 59% from the company, a little bit from the executive, a little bit from Wallachia, and also we will be getting some more from other stuff. And so the price is super collapsed, but we're okay with that. We're even subventioning export. I think we might subvention some other stuff because we don't want to. We're probably going to add another 20 or so construction sectors here, and then unpause, see how this goes, and if it's going poorly, we'll add subventions of some kind. It is the problem is like we're now gaining. We're losing money too fast, so we could increase taxes and add subventions, and those together might be good because we're trying not to get our GDP too tall. We are also kind of stalling out in terms of the migration attraction. You can see here, this is when we had exhausted a lot of the easy migrations, I guess, or something like this. And so while we were doing pretty well earlier, I think that our ability to siphon out some of these pops has significantly diminished. And again, the resources are running out. I don't think this is going to be possible, but it is pretty interesting to try and figure out the best way to go about this, slowly gain everything. To be fair, we have Swift Merchant Marine coming up if we can last long enough, and we also do have steam turbines, so we got some upticks coming our way, and once we have that, we have electrical capacitors shortly behind, so I guess we're going to add power, specifically in areas where we have a lot of clothing, and try and hang on, but the 20 more years seems a little bit of a stretch. So we noticed that our investment pool is keeping drained, so we canceled our investment rights with France. I think we're going to cancel with Russia too. Specifically, we are looking for countries where we do not need their input goods too bad. So what we're just going to do is we're just going to renegotiate and drop the investment rights and hope that either we're investing in a country like Great Britain, where we are getting like rubber or dyes or this type of thing, or we're investing in Germany, and that these sorts of treaties will be a little bit more effective for us. I think that Portugal's kind of okay where they are because they do have a lot of overseas stuff that has dyes and this type of thing, but we are just canceling a few of these out, hoping that we can kind of keep things going. I think we're in good shape for this next tick. We only have to gain up 9 million, and we do have some construction sectors in the queue. Coming up, we do have Swift Merchant Marine, which will help out for at least 1/4 of a thing. So we need to slow this down here, and the approach we are taking is we are canceling some of these subventions, but we are specifically canceling subventions that are not sort of end good subventions. We are subventioning for import. Maybe we don't need to be doing that. We will. This is not a very big one though. I guess we're going to stop subventioning there. I think we'll get enough goods, and the point of that was to be able to get the goods, but we specifically are looking for stuff where it is not an end good, and I think the really expensive one, the one that we're kind of focused on, is tools. This has been depressing other people's tools industry, so long term, I do think that this has positive side effects, so maybe we won't pull it. I just think we can't afford it. I think we have to pull it now, and we have to start being a little bit proactive about things. We have a little bit of bureaucracy, but I just wanted to like emphasize here, we are like microing every single like 2 to 3 months, or like 1 to 3 months, in terms of filling up our queue with stuff we find reasonable, that we think is profitable, you know, looking for opportunities to bring stuff to economies of scale, specifically building where there are peasants. Like we're looking around for peasants, we're looking around for stuff that doesn't have economies of scale. So like this is a perfect example. It has peasants, not economies of scale, and we are pushing these industries, and it is pretty rough, and there's a lot of clicking involved. So I do think that this journal entry is just extremely hard if you're not going to expand. If you're going to expand or you're going to cheese it, obviously it's like a pushover easy, but like this is struggle busting, and this entire game session this has been a really, really long session as well, as it stands right now, and we're just over 10 years in, so we have another 20 years on top of this. So if you're just blasting and like chilling and like going through it, I think this is going to be a really hard journal entry to be able to complete. Alright, this is going to be a really big one for us, the floating harbor mass scale trading. I was about to say it looks like kind of the end of the road-ish for us, and it isn't looking very good. This feels like we're really losing the ability to influence things, because we are now out of construction sectors that we can't expand. But we can do this, and that's going to be an additional 20% trades. And maybe that pushes prices in the direction that we need to be able to hit this checkpoint. We need like another 9 million though. Whoa, 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 what is that? We do... Okay, well we have over 1 billion now. We super overshoot it. I don't think we want to overshoot it for our checkpoint. And while we are not intentionally... yeah, let's peel back some of these to bulk trading, because we do not want to overshoot it by that much. I think that we're okay doing something like... Actually, let's peel back a little bit more, but that is a relief, because I thought we were dead in the water, and that would not have that big an effect. So this is going to be really important for us. We were effectively out of construction that we could build, although since we are booming now, we're not going to build any on this weekly, or sorry, this quarterly cycle, but in particular, we had run out of places to build that had any pops whatsoever, and so now all of that is restored, and so we have a little bit more wiggle room, and booming, we're just going to continue to cruise rather than go out of our way to do anything other than keep the queue filled. We'll keep it filled, but we're probably going to fail this next bump without any significant intervention, but we do have a significant challenge here, in that once we have like one more wave of building of, you know, a little bit of this stuff, and then we have completely exhausted the resources of Germany here. We have this 80 stack, I guess. Now all of the mineral resources of Germany have been built out as well. In addition to, we have a little bit left in our own country, but we are basically out of mineral resources, and so we're going to have to start sourcing them from other people. And so this is going to be a little bit of a vibe here for us coming in. So I think we're in a little bit of trouble on this aspect here, which is just the numbers, in that we lost a decimal place, so it is much less granular in terms of where we know where we are in terms of being able to progress. We thought that we were going to hit the last checkpoint, so we didn't take extra measures. We should have, and now we're on the chopping block yet again. I think what we're going to have to do is expand a whole bunch of construction sectors. This is going to take us up over 10k. We are going to look and see where we have the most peasants, and then we're just going to blast there instead of where's cheapest. I think that most peasants is probably now just a better heuristic. We're a little bit less concerned about the money, except we're concerned about the money, and that should be a pretty good chunk of those, but we also got got a new PM, and we are going to be turning that up in a couple of spots, and that is houseware plastics. That is going to be good in two regards. One, because the car is loud outside, and two, because it's going to make both our glass more profitable and also our oil more profitable by increasing the demand for oil. So we might end up getting off of chainsaws as we swap some of these up, but we're just going to take a look at what it looks like when we make that swap, and just let another tick happen, see where the GDP is at. I'm not sure we need to make another swap, but just in case we need to make another swap, we're going to track down another glasswork that is relatively high level. We're going to take this one, and we are going to swap this one on up to houseware plastics as well, just to really make sure that we are going to be over 109 billion. And then here's the uncertainty thing. We don't know if we're at 109 billion where we need to be or below it. Looks like we're below it, actually. So we're going to come in here, and the two places where we have oil or have a really big chunk of oil, I think we're going to actually put this place up to some glass work as well, and put this on the PM, put it on auto expand. We're going to need to fill the queue out. That's why our GDP dropped. The queue wasn't filled out. So we're going to need to add a whole bunch to the queue. The queue is getting more and more difficult to manage as, of course, it gets up over 10k. We're approaching 1 billion GDP ourselves. This, of course, is not our GDP, but Germany's GDP. And so we're continuing on, but this is not looking good at all, just because we need 18 more years. I don't think we have 18 more years worth of slack to pull out from just getting new techs that are really key and important. We have Zeppelin coming on up, but then we have like a dry spell. I guess we could go for electric railway. We could go for art silk. We have the penbrine epidemic, and I think this might solve it, so that might be good. Conveyors might be okay. We're getting a lot of mass migration, so maybe we don't need it, but we maybe can hold out for compression ignition, at which point this will be a huge tech, and maybe we can do something there, but that's going to be kind of the game plan as far as tech goes. So we are going to pull out of more investment rights agreements because we want our investment really targeted, and so this is going to be something that we just look to peel out of. Just generally speaking, we probably will try and massage stuff in a little bit of a better way for us, such as sending out engines in order to stimulate our economy, but we are looking to get out of all of these except for Great Britain, China, and Germany. Germany, of course, being the ideal place for our investment to occur. And while that is happening, if our investment pool continues to drain, we will cancel either Great Britain or China. That way, all of our investment is going into Germany and helping us with the journal. So I think Krakatoa is going to break us because we have a higher rates of rolling all of these, and these things are going to speed bump us super hard. But we have devastation of the tsunami, which is going to be pretty nasty. If something was like front-loaded, and then it had decays off, which I guess this is going to some degree, then it's not so bad. But the randomness of this is going to make it harder to try and thread the needle on the GDP. So this is probably going to be the end. We will just tell them to shove it, but we have our own problems, which is that we can't keep increasing the GDP. Truly, there's not a problem greater than that. You might say humanitarian threats. We say the threat to the shape of our line. Look at that. Just the absolute most magnificent, perfect GDP growth rate ever. There's no spikes, just pure smoothness all the way through. But I think it comes to an end here. I think this is probably it for us. I mean, to be fair, if it pips us down really strongly just in one go, then it's not so bad. But if it's... Wait, where's our flood? If we have no flood near here, we should be fine. But also, this is probably... Yeah, okay, well, we'll try and do it. Little bit of a weird phenomena. We pip Zeppelins and then we get our roll. We were expecting this MAPI to actually positively affect GDP, but it turns out it negatively affected GDP, so instead of pushing us over from 1.26 billion to 1.27, we get pushed down. So we're down in a stagnation. Or maybe this is an aspect of Krakatoa. I'm not seeing any weather events that are related to us, but you know what? If we are supplying other people with stuff and their economy is disaffected, then maybe that's going to be a situation where we will be we will be affected in downstream sorts of ways, like their SOL drops or their wealth level drops down here, so they demand fewer goods, so this depresses the global market for the goods price, which in turn hurts our market prices because they are tied together. So maybe that's a little bit of what's going on. This might throw a serious wrench in what we have going on. Kind of inclined to just let them go, but that'll jack up our market, changing our demand. I think that they probably are a net demand. They are net eating our goods rather than consuming our goods, plus they are adding inputs to the market, so giving them up doesn't feel that good, but maybe this is what we have to do. To be fair, they are a target for investment by virtue of being a subject, so maybe we could give them up. Maybe that's just a play there. We actually are going to take a think here. So we, while thinking, just like let it time out. And when you let it time out, it auto-decks on you. Sure, fair enough. With this, I think we're just going to give in, because I think we actually don't want our construction going to either of our subjects now. We took a look at Greece, or Germany's GDP, and man, Germany's GDP is flying up, and I think this is courtesy of us canceling some of our overseas investment rights so that we can only, our auto queue can only build in Germany, or this type of thing, and I think that just generally speaking, these guys aren't really helping us resolve the journal entry, and we're not going to annex them anyways, and so what we're going to do is we're just going to give in, and we're almost certainly going to brick on this next one. Our GDP should tank. There you see it, 1.2 billion, but that's fine. We have plenty of buffer. We should be in good shape, and more of our investment should be heading Germany's way. So Germany is starting to really crank up too as well. We got to make sure though we have good relations with Germany, so we start improving relations with them. We might even want to fund, actually funding lobbies is OP here, isn't it? Because we want them to get stronger anyways. It's us sending them 100 ducats is kind of meaningless, but the AI, we're super okay with the AI just getting stronger and this type of thing, and we're chilling in terms of the money situation, and so I think this actually puts us in reasonably good shape, although we are obviously going to fail this next kind of check-in, no matter what, as a consequence of the Sardinia thing. It looks like actually our trade is probably picking up some slack, rewriting some things or rerouting some things so that we get decent buy and sell orders. We're going to make sure this queue is filled up before the tick of the 16-year mark or the 14-year mark into this journal entry. So we have hit a problem, which is that our investment pool is no longer perma-draining, which is not ideal. To try and resolve this, we're going to overbuild infrastructure, not in our market, because we're kind of already doing that, but we're going to look to overbuild infrastructure in his market. Unfortunately, there isn't a really good way for us to see the infrastructure in his market, and he has a lot of locations that are already way over-tuned on infrastructure. So I don't know, in terms of the UI, the best way to go about this, other than by hand, looking at all the places and trying to see where has low infrastructure. When we've looked at this before, we haven't seen a single area that is anywhere near needing infrastructure. I guess this place, Elbe, but like, man, the AI just like super overbuilds infrastructure. What is going on? Why do they play like this? Okay, well, I guess we can't overbuild infrastructure there. We'll just have to overbuild infrastructure in ourselves to try and make it so that the auto queue picks up more things, because this investment pool, if it's growing, then we're not getting the value here. And if we're not getting the value, that's going to be bad for us, because this just gaining means that we're actually just losing 2 million, in which case we have a little bit of a clock. Of course, we're growing into this. 2 million's not as big as before, but we've had to decrease down taxes, and we've had to decrease again, and we've had to put old subventions back in and kind of raise things up again, because we are having trouble hitting the markers here, and that is going to be not ideal. I guess there's maybe a world where you're just supposed to like bring taxes up like this and then slowly bring them down to bring up SOL, and you're just supposed to fail 1 and 4, but we're gonna try and like hit each individual marker, and I think that this is probably not going to, yeah, there's probably not much left for us to do. The queue is managing to pick up the extra slack here really, really well, at the very least, if we don't put stuff in, but we still got to work to put stuff in and just hope that we hit these, because we can't afford to spend at a pace higher than this. We can't afford any, like, injections. We already have trade agreements with everyone. We've already, like, maxed out trade. For the most part, we have, like, pretty maxed out things where we have pops coming in. We have a bunch of stuff in queue on these spots. I mean, we can add a little bit more, but it's going to be a little bit rough. We need a little bit of infra and Tyrol, but this is... we're like completely redlining everything that we can do, so now there's not really much we can enter in other than just like kind of watch our fate here. And it's, are we gonna roll low or are we gonna roll high? We gotta put some stuff in the queue, but it's alright, so we're halfway there, and I think we're gonna go for compression ignition here, which is going to be a huge one for us and going to give us a lot of flexibility. It's going to give us so many PMs to turn on. Until we get there, we are going to have very, very few tools, mainly just the electric engines and also the synthetic plants getting onto rayon. So we're going to look to kind of piecemeal those, and we are going to need to put in a little bit more construction before we can really show this off, but we are kind of hemorrhaging money. Our SOL is really, really fast climbing, and this is a big part of why we're able to hold on right now, as well as Germany kind of climbing at a pretty good clip now that most of our investment has to go into them because it doesn't have any other way out. Now, this is going to mean we get slower overall growth of our investment pool because we're not getting a bunch of more profitable investments in other places, but it is going to mean that we get to push more in Germany proper here. You know, look at the auto queue go. I haven't noticed this in like years, where the auto queue just ballistically like punts a whole bunch of construction off. We're super okay with it because we just need it building stuff. It really doesn't matter. And the thing is that we actually have like nothing left in the tank. If we sort by peasants, we functionally have 0 peasants, and we have literal every labor saving PM turned on. We have been trying to build in Germany where there are peasants and unemployed available and stuff like this, but it is looking pretty grim because we really can't squeeze anything out or anything remaining out of our states. German resources are all extracted. All of our resources are extracted. We are losing money, and we are losing more than it looks like. It looks like we're losing 1.5 million, but it's really quite a bit more because our investment pool is actually growing. We're going to put a bunch of stacks here, and then we're going to see what might be the end, because this is our last tick, and we put in a bunch of subventions in this type of thing, but I don't know. We have 4 weeks for this to get up to 1.49 billion, and we could subvention a little bit more, but we are already pushing stuff quite strongly. I mean, we can just put in a few more of these and build up the queue and then watch what is probably the end, because if we max subvention everything, we definitely could make it, but there's no world where that's anywhere remotely sustainable, where we're actually trying to grow 2.5%, and if we just wanted to oscillate back and forth, we could easily do that, you know, put on all the subventions, then turn down all of our PMs, then turn up all of our PMs, and if we do this, we will definitely get this accomplished, but not in the way that we want to. So we'll put in the things, and then we'll watch what is probably going to be the end. Alright, 4 weeks. We did put up some juicy stuff in Germany. One really unfortunate thing all throughout has been they have a monopoly on the trade center. Otherwise, we would be able to fix the prices in their market quite a bit, because their market prices are kind of skewed, and also force them to trade with us a little bit more. We could try and push some more of these in our market, but this is it. I think this is probably it. We can't afford to long-term continue to do anything more than this, and mass migrations are going to be helpful. If we get one that is something to the extent of like Han or something like this, then that would be okay, but it's looking like Grunderzeit. And here we have the end. Grunderzeit. Years of optimism and financial growth have come to a screeching halt, with blood-red numbers reported across German stock exchanges as banks and speculative companies collapse like dominoes. So we have a couple of options here. Man, we definitely could have, like, this is a very doable journal entry if you're willing to cheese it, because there is no, like, it doesn't have a built-in resiliency towards, like, cheeky little methodology, but to try and accomplish it, like, the normal way is very, very difficult indeed. So, I think that is going to be it for us. We got pretty far in it. We got 16 years in, and, you know, maybe there was some more we could do. We could have probably lasted another few years. But the thing is we had, like, nothing good coming on the horizon. I guess we had conveyors. Alright, let's look at the aftermath. We have the smoothest GDP line ever. It's so smooth. You know, it's not the size that counts, it's the smoothness. We have a couple of hiccups here and there, but for the most part, they're just absolute, just perfect exponential growth rate there, 2.5% quarter over quarter, very nearly, except for at the very end we stalled out. Really, a big part of this is we should have maybe if we swapped back to conveyors like earlier, we would have been able to do this, and we just kind of greeted going for the compression ignition. Conveyors was still like a reasonable looking one, and so we probably could have drag this out longer. The thing is our level of spending, because this was accumulated, we were losing around 4 million a week, and I don't think we were growing our credit line anywhere near fast enough, and so I was trying to keep the spending down as low as possible, but even then, still subventioning a whole bunch of stuff out, trying to push it out into other people buying it. If we take a look, we are eating 1 million cost in subventions, and I think that there's quite a lot of tension in what we were trying to do, and at a certain point, like, if you full throttle everything 100%, then you're going to not be able to sustain it. And we were going increasingly higher and higher. We were preferring to run high taxes, but we had gone all the way down to low taxes to try and hit our entries. You know, Germany was starting to kick off pretty well there towards the end. I think if we had adjusted strategy earlier and just built in Germany for value rather than resources, that might have turned out a little bit better. There's definitely adjustments we can make having done this a little bit, but overall it seems like an incredibly hard journal entry if you are not cheesing it. If you're cheesing it, it's like insanely easy, but just to perfect economic growth, only using what you have available, no wars, no manipulating your GDP down to give yourself a way easier time. You know, like, if we do this, we would collapse our GDP. If we unpause, you could see, and we could eat a 200 million lower mark and then slowly turn up everything to be able to pass it, but we weren't doing that. That would have been a really easy way to do it. I thought we were dead like so many times going through this. Very interesting and kind of entertaining, but also really tedious, because we were every like few months refilling the queue and trying to find the best things available to build. After the first like couple years, we really ran out of really good things to build, so every single time we were, you know, coming through, checking what's profitable, what's the most profitable here, do we have anything close to level 30, if we have something close to level 30, we top it off for economies of scale, but like finding the industries that are good, topping off the like economies of scale here, like here would be an example. We just come up here and just top that off and get that there, but then also we have to specifically push where we have peasants. We have no peasants, we're just like completely, we have no bird, we have no bush. This is the situation that we were kind of in here at the end, and I just, if I keep talking, I'm just gonna keep droning on and like wishy-washy about like what we could have done, what could have been, this type of thing, but because I wanted to not flub it, but I don't think that there was too much we could have done here. I also do think Krakatoa decreased like global consumption, and that there's other stuff going on the other side of the earth. We weren't really keeping that close an eye on it, but I think that right when Krakatoa popped, we started having a lot more trouble Definitely adjustments could be made, but the Krakatoa was pretty painful. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Kind of a little bit of an offbeat thing. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell. If you are going to be buying the DLC and you have not already, and you want to use our code to send 12% of the sale our way, you go onto the official website and use code GENERALIST in all caps. It's a good way to support the channel. But also, if you are not in the US, make sure that it is the same price online on the Paradox store. Before doing that, don't spend more extra money to do that. But anyways, with all that said, you know, I hope your line is as smooth as mine. Something like that. Bye-bye now.